The first thing is a public hearing, so we should probably wait. That's what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You're hearing it today, right?
We'll wait for him.
Okay.
Oh, what's up? What is this?
Zoning,
So,
McCarthy, some. Song for the Shields. Production of the. Falls Road. Can we do it? I think this is Hidden Falls or. Parker. Breckville, et cetera. I think this is the parcel, right?
yeah.
Easements,
Mhm.
some easement.
Yeah, this is McCarthy's.
It's all off one.
What's those kids?
I know. So, I'm glad you did that, but, you know,
Better just have.
huh? It is. Ian, see, moved it.
What I was thinking. I mean,
And we have, which is doing seed production, and the scouts gonna think she's doing agriculture for the house. They were doing, oh, that's mine. Did you get these? I just find it interesting that when he wants his family and friends up there, no problem.
what?
But only the other way, not my kid.
No.
Line.
Everybody.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's always consistent.
Mine.
Mhm. Often.
Every now and then.
That would be.
No,
In the old days, newspaper.
he doesn't make that. Starting.
I used to have like.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Not.
Man, that's cold.
In the future, you know, talking about the same.
You won't have.
What did we think that was?
Okay. Sixteen. No, July 14th, I think. July 14th. And then I have done June 16th question. I don't know. This is going to regional planning. Some of these trails. 12 of that is the travel.
It took me a while. It took me at least half an hour.
Imagine if we expand that in this department.
And what that would do for this.
3-day week.
Eventually.
Unengaged, you know.
Make it stick in that.
Yeah, like yesterday.
So we were the 16th of June.
Oh, they were doing it 2 years. They have multiple dates.
Yeah, I had it marked down as question mark.
Yeah.
Probably.
Suppose that's their software.
It is. I think it is.
It's not horrible.
Mhm.
Oh.
Mhm. And let's get this key out there. What's that? What's that? Oh.
Sneaking in.
Weekly conference room.
Down here.
Okay. It's for the- Yeah. We did it for the marriage. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You did press out.
Where are you? How are you?
Because we're just all regular voters, none of them.
We are on
resolution.
I don't think we have any resolutions. Oh, but actually the budget amendment is. Yep. The other things are. Yeah.
So,
We got discussion about.
yeah.
Oh, we've
It's
changed.
gonna be about 5 minutes late. So
I think that was what we changed for the psychiatric.
that's supposed to be more.
That should be pretty straightforward since I went through it a couple weeks.
I
ago.
really we get recently and then also down to the smart part
Mhm.
yesterday.
How's the grandkids?
Summer schedule. Yes.
Cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. These guys, when we were out.
Yeah. Steve will be about 5 minutes late that day. So by
This is a resolution to schedule the public hearing on the, yeah. Still 3 yards away. Going through everything here to make sure. You can tell.
This around this. Okay.
I started taking everything. I was, it's an equal. Like.
Barb,
Yeah, I smelled that earlier today. I'll smell it now, but. It's like about an hour ago. About an hour ago, it's real strong.
Yeah, mostly it's like, it's correct. It is. I told Tom I was gonna find some place without trees. My grandmother. Told us that. Yep. Wow.
Time to do the pledge while we wait.
Yeah, we can. For all those who choose to stand, will stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wait just a couple more minutes. Steve said he'd be here at 9:35, so
Do not want to present.
I don't.
As our policy, I'm notifying you that
No,
this
I
meeting
got
is
Shirley.
being recorded. If you'd like to leave, if you don't want to be recorded, you may.
We didn't start the meeting yet, so I'm just gonna.
It is started though.
We'll give them one more minute. If not, we'll start at 9:35.
Gonna have nice construction.
Yeah.
That was like opening up a can of worms and then you see the doors to crumble. And before they started, I looked like oh, it's sour.
Oh, here? Yeah. What if they'll find any time capsule?
I don't know. I think it's gonna get more complicated than that.
That seems to be, so.
Tell him. He said 5 minutes. So you can try to-
Right on.
He's made that trip a few times.
Yeah. Well, it's 9:35. We'll call the meeting to order with the public hearing. Entertain a motion for
Motion to open public hearing.
second. First and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is over. Anybody online with comments in the audience?
I went through the information a 3 weeks ago when we set the public hearing. It was all published in the newspaper as well. There are actually very few amendments that are increases. Most of them are decreases or just shuffling money around within a department. So we had, the biggest one was 100,000, just guessing on legal expenses with the lawsuit for law enforcement. Otherwise, we had a little bit of property insurance and health insurance. And then election expenses were both revenues and expenses with all the elections that were not budgeted, but we billed the city and school districts for those, so we actually net zero.
No questions. Is there anybody online? I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Got a first and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
action I'd like is to approve the amendment or adopt the amendment and appropriate the funds.
I move to adopt the amendment and appropriate the funds as listed.
I'll second that.
I have a first and a second to adopt the amendment for the considerations mentioned, and it is a resolution. Mark,
Aye.
Shirley,
I,
I also. Motion carries.
Let me sign there.
Okay. Mike. Chair. Michael Kueny with Road Department.
So since the last meeting, Winneshiek County is a finalist for the bill grant. There's nothing new this week. Just the federal funding decisions are up in the air. Railroad flat car bridge study coordination, that's going to be the same for the next couple of weeks. Subdivision, same thing. Work out of Austin on the rocking the roads will be done this week. On Wednesday of last week, I attended a Floyd County orientation. The new engineer, Adam Miller. Project to cut into the Quarry Hill Road across from Van Penen to make the drive safer is being coordinated with the city of Decorah and Burns. That's to take out blind curves and make everything a lot more visible. So
That'd be nice.
yes, that's that's been up in the air for a couple of weeks now. I think we're gonna go forward with it.
Will we do the work on that or?
Brunings is offering to do the work. It's a land swap, and I'm gonna try to meet with them on the more final details on that. So there's a little bit of money, I think, with the city of Decorah for this specific thing. It's not gonna cost them much money, and they'll be doing the work. And we're looking at roughly $40,000 out of the road department to get that to be a nice road. So that would be huge. So it is just the part close to Van Penen. It isn't that other dangerous portion that snakes down on the other side. That's another problem we won't be able to get to this year. Signman position is still open. I'll know more at the end of the day today. We will likely need to approve a new hire next week, so if you put that on the agenda.
Yeah. How many applications?
Roughly 10. So, yeah,
Those are all external?
all external, yes. But that included some of the guys that we hired for.
Oh, the other.
Yeah, this is just so everything's kind of moving. And we have an offer on the table, and then he's supposed to make his decision today at the end of the day. So bridge crew, bridge 202 outside of Fort Atkinson, we're looking at mobilizing there today. And then bridge 249 on 200th Street, and I think it's 312th, on the corner there. We're looking at doing the repairs, fixing up the substructure, the abutment and the piling. And then W20 culverts is also being worked in. The order of that is not certain yet. And then Denko is supposed to get back to me this week with a quote. FEMA is the same as last week. Town Line Road hole was was filled in and taken care of, last week. All 5 summer mowers are beginning this week. I have not heard that they reported yet. Summer interns, to start this week or next as the final paperwork gets turned in. They finished up with school, so we're working that out this week. And then, all of our big projects are the same as last week. So.
Is Austin the last leg now for gravel?
Austin and Fort are kind of splitting between the two, so I think there's, and they're not doing all of one person's route at the same time. The details I'm not exactly sure on, and they weren't supposed to work this week, but then at the end of last week, they changed course, so.
Generally speaking, the earlier we get the gravel, the better, so.
Yeah, we just gotta watch, I gotta make sure that there's enough cash in the fund for that.
Right.
So that's the issue, so.
Tell them to pick it back up.
Any questions?
No.
Sounds good.
Anything you've heard from the public?
Don't think quiet.
All right.
Yeah, it's north of me on that too. I don't know when we went Wednesday for a ride and just on the top of one hill, it's just like, I don't know if there's a spring in there or what. But never in my life have I ever seen it.
Where's that?
Just north of me on 230.
Okay.
It's just on a real sharp, right by Jay Graves' driveway. Never, I don't know what that was. It was about, I suppose, 100 foot long, just like a spring come out of it. Yeah, it was after that rain, you know.
Okay.
And I never in my life have ever.
It was on the hill
there. Yeah, right on top of the hill, almost right coming off the top of the hill. And it's just like a knob, so. Cross left in there and pushed out.
This
That was weird, this is weird, really weird.
Yeah.
I've never, ever, it just like slop almost. I don't know what the heck it was, that was good now, but it was just a weird.
Are they continuing with the mulcher?
They are, and they're doing work on 318th, north of A18 up there, and they're gonna get the intersection there a little bit wider. They're having, because it's narrowed up quite a bit, they're having trouble turning, so we'll widen up the radiuses there to make it easier for the semis to turn onto that road. So we're doing that.
So the blade operators are happy with what's.
Yeah, the one blade operator who's used it primarily is very happy, and I'm happy with the results that we're seeing. So we'll be trying to keep those roads narrow so that the rock that we do purchase goes as far as it can.
What implement is this mulcher attached to?
It's tractor, so just, yeah.
What used for mowing ditches?
Mhm.
We get some rain.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Michael. Well, yeah. 10 minutes, you have anything on the consent agenda?
On the consent agenda, I have the claims, which you've been looking through, minutes, which I sent out last week. Got a fireworks permit, for, I can't remember which, one of the campgrounds. And, it's Dave Sexton and Scott Sindelar is doing the display, so he's actually the one making the application. He's one of the operators that J&M Displays Inc. and does these on a fairly regular basis.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a first and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Committee reports.
Upper Explorerland met last week at 1 o'clock, another meeting. It's a real active board. It's the work that Upper Explorerland Regional Planning does for this, just Winneshiek County, but Northeast Iowa is pretty amazing. So if you ever want more information, go to their website, uerpc.org.
Number of things are proceeding here at the, for repairs at the courthouse. The ceiling tiles in the courtroom are being changed out and some new T-bar grid going in there within this next month, working around Judge Parrish's schedule and any trials that we may have. And then we'll be starting this outside the wall out here, closing the stairway that goes down from the upper area down, walling that in. That's really an unsafe condition. And we've got a number of places around the courthouse where we have concrete that's fitted and spalled and it's being sought out and replaced. So those things are going to be proceeding here in the very near future. The last thing that's happening is the haven't got the schedule yet for the final redoing of the floors of the third floor, so that they're putting that permanent seal on it so we can cut back on the amount of waxing and so forth. That seems to have worked out very well on the second floor.
Looks really nice, yeah.
Then they're gonna do a little work over at the community service building out front there, put a couple new chunks in that are,
Yeah,
and grind one down.
we got one right down below here where a lion put that guy wire in and never replaced that concrete. So we got 2 spots down there and then one right in front of the doors going into the boiler room.
And they have a hole cut out here where they're gonna put the
Oh,
baller so that we can't have anyone driving around the courthouse.
That's rather unusual.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I saw for a minute ago, it wasn't marked. I hope it's marked now.
the hole, yeah, I noticed it,
Should
I
have
almost stepped in it, but you know.
Who's doing that work?
It's Hupka. Very Hupka. Yeah,
So
he's-
when we leave here, one of us needs to make sure.
I'll
we get
check it on the way
it
out there.
Yeah, the community service building sounds like they're haven't heard on the phone, so.
Getting all settled in now.
Yeah, they're really, I mean, just like happy to be in there. Yeah. Just the atmosphere and just look out a window and see whatever. Yeah, just nice.
And we had, was it last week, Mark? We had that meeting out there at the.
Yeah. With their
One broker brought
the
a
old
client.
DHS building.
Oh, yeah.
The DHS building, one broker brought out a client, wanted to see it. Mark and I met them out there and opened the building up.
It would be a great space
There's a
for
lot of
that.
opportunity there for the right person.
Yeah.
So Winneshiek County Development is now. Marketing that.
They're fully engaged and things are,
I noticed it on the
moving
website.
They're putting together a sales sheet with the features, marketing on that national website for commercial space. Amongst other things. They were gonna do a drone aerial of it too. So most people are surprised at the amount of, they don't realize all that's land behind that goes with it.
when you drive by it, unless you know better, it looks like just another house sitting there. But it's far from another house. And behind it is a massive gravel parking lot and open area.
June 12th, the VA is their open house for all VA. I think it starts at 4 o'clock in here at the annex.
Sure.
Yep. Do it every year. They have a couple of speakers. Yeah,
June 12th.
June 12th.
Lori just got a liquor license. If you have any, homes on adding that into the consent agenda for Barney's Bar and Grill.
Barney's? No. Good sandwiches.
A motion to amend that.
Okay.
First and second to amend liquor license into the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. They get the roof pretty well sealed up now. Problems. I don't know.
Well,
See, we got the bill.
I think
Yeah.
we have, I think we have the
So I
leak
asked.
portion of it, you know, that Mark and I both looked at real closely. I think that one is squared away. I'm still not convinced that we don't have a major material problem with the shingles that are up there. Would you agree, Mark?
Yep, almost, the majority of the shingles have the same consistent crack in the tabs.
Horizontal lines.
So it's not like it's a structural thing because it just is consistently.
It doesn't matter what exposure, just cracked shingles.
So we're following up with the manufacturer.
The architect that did it is supposed to have been following up on it. We have not heard anything further.
And that's been a year ago, so we need to.
Yeah, it's been far too long. You
Are
know,
you guys making another phone call?
We need to.
we need to send a letter. As it's
How long has it been? How long was the shingle?
Let me look at the first, like, I've got.
8 years, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But we did put on like 50-year shingles, and that was part of the,
Oh, wow.
we put on the best shingles supposedly that were available, so,
Then
yeah,
Paid for them anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, we paid for them.
it looks like we put on the cheapest when you look at it.
I've never seen it. I've never seen that.
I-
Never seen that before.
It seems to be a structural design flaw of the shingle itself.
I'll put that old new ceiling in. Courtroom and then.
Take it all down.
Resiliency.
Yeah, I would think. Next time they redo that, the whole roof should be covered with that ice barrier before they put the shingles down.
Yep.
It's just such a low pitch,
Oh, yeah.
it needs.
Well, it's 9:55. We'll go on to miscellaneous set of public hearings for the re-codification of the county ordinances.
So I worked with Andy, we're gonna set this up for June 9th at 10:30. It's procedural thing, any county ordinances that we have that have been in the past have to be re-codified every 5 years, so this is just to keep in place everything that we currently have.
I'd entertain a motion for the approval of setting the public hearing.
I motion to set the public hearing for June 9th for the recodification.
Second.
Got a first and a second. There's a resolution.
Aye.
Mark, Shirley,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
I also. Motion carries. Is it anybody else got anything?
Tony Phillips and Jana and I had reported to the courtroom on the Winneshiek or whatever, the water defenders over that's the lawsuit about the public hearing on the digester information. Anyway, we waited for 45 minutes and their attorney never showed up, so we don't know what the next step will be. Then now they have to work with the judge and the attorney to figure out what's going on, so. Last Tuesday.
Good thing it was close by.
Yeah, see, it wasn't a big deal for us, so then we sat there chit chatting while we waited to see. And it cost our attorney is being provided by our insurance company, and so he came from Cedar Rapids or something to come here for that, and then. So.
John's moving some of them partitions out of the building. He was, when he goes check on the building every day, he just throws a few in, restore them and put them on them shelves in the community service building. And they get a bunch of stuff cleaned out of there, so they're getting get back.
The building looks darn good.
We had Steve and I were discussing repairing some of the water damage in the foundation there, that building.
I don't think,
I don't spend any money on it. I mean, because whoever's gonna go in there and do what they're gonna do.
yeah, I don't believe we have a water problem any longer.
No.
That issue was this with the downspout.
Downspout.
But I think it's all taken care of.
Yeah, because I've never seen any dampness in there or anything when I.
Just need to get the file cabinet or big rotator.
Yeah, whoever wants a file cabinet for $1 can have it. You move it.
If you move it, yeah.
I think we'll give them $1.
I think they got one big heavy desk in there.
You're volunteering the $1.
Well, I think scrap value is worth one.
You're taking it.
There's what, 3 of them, I think, 3 or 4.
Those two
Big
6-foot sections.
3.
Three.
The covered section, yeah, 2 this now there.
7 feet tall.
Costs you more in labor to tear them out than it would be.
Yeah.
Well, it's 10 o'clock. We got Barb Schroeder with County Conservation. Neste property development timeline, bills and budgets.
So if I can direct you to the TV screens, I just put together a presentation just to kind of give an overview and talk about the project. And then at the end, I can address any more questions that you may have. And then we'll talk about the Forest Resilience Partnership program. So anyway, so here's a view of Neste Valley Recreation Area from Highway 52. So this is part of what started off as the Dry Run Trail project, and when approached by the Neste family, and you look at it on a map, it's like the ideal place to have a trailhead, restrooms, a park, and all the amenities that go along with that, and even camping. The original Neste house is no longer there. It was built in 1854, but the current house was actually built in 1876. And the Neste family had a carriage path that took them to Decorah, and they actually didn't put in a driveway until 1954. The original Neste home was a little cabin down by the railroad then, or down by the creek. And then when a railroad came in, it got moved up towards into the farmstead. And then in 2005, it was moved to Valdres, Norway, and is on exhibit at an outdoor museum and is called the American House. And you can see it's got the old tin and barn boards on it. So it got kind of a timeline. There's, you know, Neste's, we've been working on this project for a long time. Back in 2012, the County Conservation Board entered into an agreement with the Heritage Foundation. Through that sale, the Neste family were given an award by the governor. And we had news released with all of our plans laid out and discussed. And then, you know, we've gone through a series of planning with architecture firm, and we were awarded the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a grant to work on the actual adding a second roadway or driveway, the parking area for the trailhead and all the camping spurs. Back in 2020, you know, the Conservation Board accepted the plan that the secondary roads had developed for that roadway. And then in 2021, Andrashik had asked for it to be moved and requested a sale or trade of land. This property was purchased with state and federal funds, so we cannot trade or sell the land. We worked again with some redesigning, and those plans were agreed upon, and we had Erdman Engineering hired to put those architect plans into an actual construction plan. We used Erdman Engineering for that. And through all this time, we had to actually get a couple extensions on that Land and Water Conservation Fund. And so we're down to, this project needs to be completed in December. Here's a picture of Mary and Ingrid Neste receiving their award. Here's the driveway we're talking about. It's a quarter mile back to the farmstead, and it's a single track. So with that knob clear back, if somebody's coming, you don't see them and somebody has to back up, and that's kind of dangerous. So for safety reasons, this has not been opened as a park. And so we're looking forward to having that roadway constructed so we can open up Neste Valley. The landscape architect did several plans, but I put this slide in just to show that everything's been planned out into phases, and that it was never originally planned to have this all at once, open the campground. It takes a lot of money to be able to build a campground, so they broke it down into phases for us. Like I said, we've had multiple illustrations of how the campground could look. And we worked through those with County Conservation Board members. And we ended up with a modification that took out all this area to the west and just left the sites that were required by the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So that's what this is an illustration of. It matches what was said in that grant. And so we're putting in a second lane to the park entrance. The grant's also doing the campground roadways and those camping spurs. And those camping spurs, some of them are pull through and some are back in type sites. This is the same timeline, but I've added at the bottom, once the construction's done, we'll plant native vegetation in all the construction areas. We'll work on installing kind of visual barrier trees, one to the neighbors to our west and southwest, and then also along the campground itself and the roadway, one kind of dust control and two visual barrier for those campers from just the park traffic. We also need to install some fences to separate the roadway from the farmstead. When we did the archaeology on the property, one of the archaeologists stated that it was important to protect that farmstead and its integrity. And then naturally install park signage. So when we did that original designs, we asked to also have a cost estimate for when we start grant writing. And so the original estimate to do the entire campground, that means, electrical, sewer, water, shower house, everything, was close to $900,000. And that was back in 2017. So today, all we're doing is what is required by that grant: the driveway, the roadways in the campground, and those camping spurs. So we're looking at around $348,575. And the grant, in that grant budget, we had estimated 354. So we're real close to what we said we would do in that grant. So, and this budget was put together by the county engineer. Future construction would be that shower house, restroom. We put together some of these kind of ideas back when there was American Rescue Plan. And when it first came out, it would fund sewer and water. And so we pulled together different plans that these are prefab cement structures that also work as storm shelters if need be. But again, these are future plans, but the part of doing a master plan and getting all of these estimates at the time was, one, to be able to write the grants, two, to be shovel ready when things like the American Rescue Plan comes about. You need to be able to have your ideas and be able to get a grant application together really quickly. So we have no plans at this time or no funding to do this aspect of the campground. So it will not be a campground for quite some time. We have a lot of work to do, but we are, again, going back to doing this work in phases as we have money available and grants available. So it's the forest resiliency, I guess I've got a couple slides here. This came about, the DNR, Iowa DNR contacted us about this. This is a program that in my 30 years, I've never seen it be offered to county conservation boards. Most of the forestry programs and grants have been to private landowners. And so to have this opportunity is pretty unique. It has to be only county conservation boards that are part of this program. So we worked with the forester already and with the Dry Run Greenbelt, which is the Neste property, the Hunter and Harris tracts. We're at $58,000. The minimum for this grant is $100,000. So we're not eligible yet. So we're going to start looking at, our staff's done a real good job of working on the current areas that we have and managing them, so there aren't any giant needs in those parks. There are still needs, so we're meeting with the forester again this week to showcase some of those areas. they have to create a kind of a management plan for each area for it to be qualify for that grant. But we're, I'm not sure we would even, with adding all of our areas, we would still make that threshold. So that's why I'm coming to you today also to have you think about the woodland above the secondary road shop at Freeport. There's 125 acres of woodland that has been logged in the past, but has not had the timber stand improvement, the management. I know there's been storm damage. There's a lot of downed trees. This is an area where a grant like this could come in, clean up that area, select those quality trees that you want to manage for future logging, or or clearing around a big tree that maybe is potentially that seed tree for future generation of oaks on this property. So there's a lot of opportunity with this grant. I know on some of the areas that we've already looked at, we're looking at doing a lot of invasive species control. We've got a lot of buckthorn, and in those areas we can go in with a forestry mower and get a lot of work done. And this grant is over 3 years, so it's not everything done in 1 year. We can keep coming back in and managing over those 3 years, especially like the buckthorn if there's some regrowth. I know here on this woodland above the secondary road shop, especially along the bottom, there's a lot of honeysuckle. I myself have not walked this area ever, so I can't speak to what is there, but I drive by it all the time, and I see a nice oak woodland that this grant is offering us an opportunity to do some management. And actually it would be hired out. We don't have the staff to do this. This would all be contract work. So.
And it's the amount of the grant.
The minimum is 100,000. There is no cap. The minimum is 100,000. The big.
Over 3 years.
Yes.
You have a 20% match.
Yes.
The big question on that was conservation doesn't own this property, so can you collaborate with the county to do it or not?
So we're gonna have to come into some kind of an agreement. I got an answer and they talked about agreement, but I'm not sure they quite understood my question. So I need to come back to that person and I may even call them, because I think they took my question about, is an agreement something that we could do? I think they took that as that 10-year management agreement as part of the grant. If you get funded, you have to agree that you're going to manage it for 10 years. So I want to make sure they understood my question, but if they did understand, then we could go into some type of agreement. Yeah. Right. So as long as we're managing it for that 10 years, but it's a unique opportunity. I don't, I guess.
You aren't asking the board for an action on it today, just to be ready so that when you get an answer from the DNR and talk with Andy to make sure we have the type of agreement.
It's a unique opportunity for us to be able to really jumpstart and take care of a piece of property and do that forest management.
Do you think there's any chance that there are trees that are ready to be harvested now that could be used to provide part of our matching portion?
So how long ago was Carl's Broughton on the board?
12, 13 years. Yeah.
Okay, so back then he pulled out a management plan and he had the forester come. And back then I think they were looking for a harvest, but I don't think it was ready at that time. So,
Does that, that parcel above the Freeport Road Shop has that Freeport water tank, reserve tank up there on top? Does that have any implications or?
no,
affect this?
it would just be managing and the woodland. So
So like that field that,
CRP?
that's a
Yeah.
CRP.
it has nothing to do with that.
Jody, yep, yeah, that would be left out and those lines included the shop area and the fire, department
Yes,
training and stuff.
Right.
That would all be left out. It would be just
Correct.
the wood.
just the woodland.
So we have to maintain it for 10 years, but they're only going to accommodate 3 years. Is that what this is saying? Or are they gonna?
Well, to do that work, we have the 3 years to
Yeah.
do the work, and then
We have 7
Uh,
left.
the 10 years is just kind of a standard, like when we get a trail group. Most, fish habitat grants, it's a standard language that the DNR has in their grants, but it's just, we're,
So if you go in the first 3 years and get all the invasive species or whatever cleaned out and 7 years down the road, it's coming back, you need to go in and clean it up again.
well, we would actually keep up with it,
Yeah.
so it would never get to the state that it's in right
We
now.
have a yearly service charge
An
on
annual.
after the first 3 years. We got to pay
Annual
for the next
expense.
7.
Yeah, can you anticipate what kind
What
of
would
work
that
do
would
you,
cost?
what does that entail? What do you have to do after that 3 years of?
They don't outline that. They do not outline that. And it's not like that we're gonna get charged for something. It's just, I can't really speak to all the details on something like that.
But if you don't keep up the management, then you may have to pay the grant back because you didn't keep up your end of the. That's how some of them work. If you don't keep the management up in there for the next 7 years.
Yes,
You may have to give back what you got.
right.
too.
And-
That, it's gonna be a cost at the end.
Could be.
The last 7 years, that cost would be what I would like to know. What it's
Yeah.
gonna cost.
What is
for
it?
them
What do you have
7
to
years.
do?
Yearly maintenance on the 110 acres of woods is what would be the big question.
Would that include, now, some, you mentioned Hunter's property and is some of that Beard property and so forth in that forestation area around Neste?
Yes.
So would they then participate in the 80-20? Would they participate in the maintenance of it? They gain the benefit of it to begin with? Are they then partners in it?
We own those properties. They're not private.
They were Hunter. but
Yes.
now they're part of it.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
not their.
Right.
yeah, that's just, we call it the dry run greenbelt, but
It's all.
the previous owners,
So
Exactly.
to identify
Kinda-
which parcel you're talking about.
exactly.
Yep.
I think it'll be a worthy endeavor to do it. Oak trees right now are kind of on an endangered thing in Iowa. They're not necessarily populating because of the densities of the places they live, so gonna have to open up areas for them to start it again. So I think this would be a great opportunity to get cost on that and also to improve the land we own.
Biggest question is what it's gonna cost per year for 7 years after that. So it'd be 50,000 a year for the year after that, then it's.
Oh, goodness, no, that
I mean,
50,000 is a staff person. It would be, we're talking oak woodland, so, just going through that whole section and, following up with any invasives that might come in. And we're talking woody vegetation.
Yeah.
And then, that's pretty much going to be the maintenance of that woodland. So,
And this woodland probably hasn't had any maintenance for decades, so
Probably.
at least up above the shop area. I don't know about years out there.
well,
but
and typically after a harvest, you come in with timber stand improvement. So you're getting that woodland ready for that next harvest and treating it like a crop. And selecting what tree is the next, tree that you're gonna harvest and kind of clearing around it and giving it the space to grow straight. And, like I said, I can't speak to what this woodland looks like and if there are trees that could be future crop trees, but this forester is willing to work with you folks to get it to that state to where in the future, this could be managed as a crop. And once you get into that cycle, potentially, you know, I've known of another woodland in Cerro Gordo County where that landowner every 10 years did a small harvest. So.
I think that one, the Neste, not the Neste, but some of that one guy owned, I know that was maybe done in the maybe late 80s, early 90s. I know a gentleman that owned it before him.
Okay.
Took some, just whatever that one parcel was, nothing to do with hunters or the Neste, but then that other one.
Yeah, the hair.
Some was taken out of
Yeah.
that one. That's the only one I've ever seen that was harvested out there, yeah.
Yeah, and
A
you,
lot of hopes.
and you could still have a quality woodland if you manage it correctly and.
Yeah, it used to be
we're-
pastured, so it was
Right.
pretty clean, and now it's,
Mhm.
has been for, shoot, lots of years, so.
And,
it's-
and we're fortunate to have the Iowa DNR Forestry Department. Those foresters actually have a management plan. That property actually already has a management plan written up. And so, you know, if we just follow that plan, you know, you have a sustainable woodland then. Without management, things just change and sometimes not for the good.
So when they did the architectural study on the Neste property there, when you say fencing off the homestead, is that the current farmhouse and outbuildings and so forth, or?
Right,
what does
so-
that encompass?
Well, so the new driveway will have a cul-de-sac turnaround for the public. And
Just at the top of it.
yeah,
or just
well,
past
just
the-
past that. So that way, all the traffic's not coming down into that farmstead, you know, so. And then the parking lot will be up there at that area. So not down in the farmstead.
Is somebody living in the house right now?
There'll be summer interns utilize that. And during COVID, that was our satellite office when we had to spread staff out. We had 2 staff working. 2 of us worked in the office at Lake Meyer, 2 worked in the shop at Lake Meyer, and 2 worked out at Neste. So we were able to spread staff out. Since COVID, we still utilize the office out at Neste. That's where Evan worked primarily. And especially if they're working with schools here in Decorah, it doesn't make sense to drive back to Lake Meyer all the time. They can run out to Neste and a lot of program supplies are stored there, so.
So the current project is underway for the public to understand. That's going to grade the road, the main access driveway and cul-de-sac. Then it's grading the internal roads of the future campsites and the camping pads. Now, is that going to be just dirt finish? Is that going to be gravel finish?
Gravel finish,
All the way through?
Yes.
Camping pads, camping lanes, everything except for utilities or anything that would go beyond the development of the
Correct.
campground.
Is that
Correct.
being done in this project?
in this project, yes,
Campsite development will be.
yes. Because that's way
That's tied to that.
grant,
All
Yes.
of the site work for this that makes us the grant qualify.
correct.
Being done at this point. And does that also require the fencing?
No, the fence is separate. That's county conservation board. Just, we're gonna need to put in a gate and just make sure the public isn't driving clear almost to South Bear School following that old carriage path. You know, it's just, fences make good neighbors, but you know, the public's like cattle, you know, if they find an opening, they're everywhere.
So with this parking area and what you're putting there, what will be the use of this property as we go forward before any other improvements are done? I
Well,
mean, public use. I don't mean.
public
I
use,
don't mean how you do your officing or staff.
it's already gets quite a bit of use for bird watching. It's an incredible spot for grassland birds. And that riparian area along the creek. So we already have folks coming out and birding. They usually contact me ahead of time. So, but by having this open to the public, then everybody will be able to walk around and enjoy. There are already mowed trails along that creek. So we've got a couple picnic tables under a grove of oaks. Once this construction's done and we're ready to open it up, we'll bring out more picnic tables and make it a picnicking spot also. As the dry run trail progresses, this will be there will be an actual almost a mile of bike trail through Neste. That is an important portion of that dry run trail project. We don't have plans for a shelter or anything like that, but I think once we're have a better idea of the footprint of all of this construction, then we can look ahead at those kinds of plans too.
So if you, back 13 years ago or so, they did an estimate at roughly 900,000 to build this 32 unit camping space and access road. And if you're spending about 300,000 of that now, or whatever that number was off of that original estimate, what do you think are the updated costs to be able to put in what that phase of what you're wanting to do?
I haven't looked at it because I'm out of matching money, so I'm not even going to be writing grants right now. But you know, because if I look up a price right now, and I don't have the money to build it, you know, it's not a good use of my time. You know, things keep changing. Yeah, it would have been cheaper if we would have done everything all at once, but I just didn't have the funding. And it's difficult to build a bike trail and do other projects at the same time. The opportunity came to be able to at least start this, and as money becomes available, we hope to be able to do those things. But again, there's no immediate plan for the next grant or anything like that.
So is it realistic to say that something may not even happen with that for 5 years by the time you get the
Potentially.
trail done, 10 years, and trying to maintain what we already have?
Correct.
And I've had some comments from some existing campground owners wondering why we're in the business to compete with them. And there are about roughly 600 camp spaces in Winneshiek County. We've got I think 140 right down the way into Cora at their campsite. They have right now, of course, I'm glad to hear that you're not putting the campground in, because we have nothing to offer a camper per se, other than camping out in the middle of an open field. That's not quite as attractive as being on the river or down by the lake or whichever. With respect to your matching funds that you accumulate, which I think is wise using your camping fees, my suggestion is that you look at the camping fees. They're unrealistically low. When it's $10 and $15 on the river at Kendallville, or $15 and $20 down at Lake Meyer, everything else in the county runs from $35 to $60 a night. They offer more accommodations, more opportunities, campground. Not only that, but one even has a beauty shop. And you can't compete with Harvest Farms, which is 2+ miles above where you are at Kendallville. And that campground is so well maintained, you can't even find a dandelion out there in the lawns. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they have 153 spaces. But I would suggest that raising those rates would be a wise thing to do. Apparently, a lot of people from Howard County will come over and book the Kendallville site for 4 days for $60, and that locks out other people And I think that you've got a better revenue source to be able to build up your side fund, which is going to be beneficial to what you're trying to do in the future.
Okay, I appreciate that information. I'll be sure to visit with the board. I do know that last year we did raise our rates to 15 for non-electric and 20 for electric sites.
There is nothing even close to you. The average is really 45 to 60. If it's weekends or holidays are 3-day reservations, weekends are 2-day reservations. You've got, most have online reservation systems. You don't. I'd suggest that you look into putting in an online reservation system. The costs are very,
Yeah, we've taken your suggestion. It's just timing right now.
yeah, there is a specific, different groups at different campsites are using other reservation systems. One that will deal with small campgrounds the size of what conservation has is one called Pitch Camp. They're very reasonable. They handle fee processing. They handle credit card access and everything else so that you don't have to deal with that, and it's taken off staff time. Was used in the Riverside Park and Campground in Spillville, and set that up. Very, very simple. I did it.
Yeah, well, the staff time is to go out and mark those spots because, you actually have to make sure somebody doesn't pull in and mark that spot, that it's been reserved.
That's your camp house.
Well, but that's where they're not on our computer system, so we're working through that, and we'll get that figured out. And we did take your recommendation and are working through some of the bugs on that and how to do that.
Yeah, I set up the one in Spillville in less than a day.
Yeah,
It's not
Right.
difficult. The other aspect is, the reputation of the campgrounds in the county is not as good as it could be with the maintenance level. I've had complaints at different board meetings from citizens and city councilmen and so forth. Mowing and pruning, people saying that my husband has to bring pruning shears so I can park my camper without scratching it down at Lake Meyer. The road, I don't know if the road in there is a secondary road responsibility.
it's on conservation board, but
Another complaint from city councilman in Fort Atkinson was, I'd like to go down there, but the road's so darn rough, they need to put gravel on that road. So these are things that I'm hearing, Barb, from the
I
public,
appreciate that. And
that the maintenance aspect of it, before we get so engaged with the Neste Valley, for the public and the county, I'd like to see that we improve the maintenance aspect of what we already have, so we preserve it.
so can I address a couple of those things real
Please
quick
do.
here? So the roads, we are waiting to we've got $50,000 worth of rock coming through FEMA to do Lake Meyer. And so we didn't put it on right away just because it's just going to get washed. We were just, we had some rains here. And so that's coming in. And the pruning the trees, we have other folks that come to Lake Meyer because they like the shade. And so having a newer campground for these large units where they can pull in and there's no tree to scratch, that's the advantage of having that newer campground rather than these old campgrounds that were designed for pop-ups way back when. We don't have any more real estate. We're kind of tied to a small footprint. So, we do try to address any issues that we do get. And as far as mowing those some of the campgrounds have a mowing contractor, and some are done by our staff, but for the most part, we try to keep up on that. So, but you just catch a wrong day and somebody may see something they don't like, and but we try to address those things. So I appreciate knowing those kinds of complaints, because that gives me something to go back and talk to the maintenance staff about.
You have one of the most abundant dandelion fields in the county at Kendallville. there's hardly any grass. It's mostly dandelions. When I was out coming back from church, stopped in there recently, and it's just dandelions everywhere. And your river access on that side of it is very limited. Yes, you got river access on the other side, but if people in the campground want to go down to the water, looks like the path is about 2 or 3 feet wide in areas that would be more attractive to people camping there and justify it. You really are justified to a higher fee.
Well, and, you know, I don't, you know, we're conservation, so the dandelions are pollinators, and so we actually have some pollinator areas where the septic fields were that we don't mow, but you know, we have to be careful that we're not putting a lot of chemicals down, because we do have a lot of children in our parks, so it's kind of a, you know, it's a,
Not suggesting that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
okay,
your appearance is also important, because it's not, you're not attracting somebody for the camping fee amount. You're attracting because you're near a water source. You have other amenities right there in the natural aspect that are important. So use it to build up your funds so that you're self-sustaining that way is going to be better. And you have funds to do more maintenance or improvements.
okay, sounds
You know,
good.
because you've got so many other parks, and, you know, it's not, you know, if you go to Harvest Farms, they don't, no, they say, oh, no, that's not a, Gary that owns it says, no, you're not a competition to me.
No.
His starts at $45, and he has seasonal sites there. He has 87 seasonal sites that are $2,700 to $3,000 a year, and a waiting list of years to get on. So you've got a totally different scenario.
Well, and then,
She pointed that out, it is totally
Yeah.
different.
Oh,
And
it's
our
totally
county parks are accessible to people of all income levels, which is beautiful. But on a positive note, I want to say that this is a wonderful community effort on the Neste farm. The Trout Run Trail alone brings in close to $13 million annually in this economic impact on Winneshiek County. Prairie Farmers around 2 million or so. And if someday we can connect those two, this is going to be a huge boost to Winneshiek County monetarily. So thank you for the work on that. And a reminder, she's doing all this one person short. We cut her one person, so kudos to you and your board for doing what you are with what you got.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm glad we're taking advantage of the grant that's there to develop the roadway and future campsites, and maybe there's some citizens out there that would like to donate the cost and allow us to finish it, but
actually, the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation is continuing to collect donations for Neste and Dry Run Trail. And so you can go to their website and actually donate. And there are folks who donate every year to the project. So
it's gonna be huge plus that
yeah.
gets completed.
And we just, for your own sake, along the Conover section of the Prairie Farmer Trail, there's probably some maintenance that needs to be done in there with some potholes and root growth and so forth that are becoming dangerous.
Yeah, I think the girls addressed it last week before the holiday, but maybe not. We were aware of it. It's trying to get everything ready for the holiday, but I think they addressed it or will be. I know they at least put out cones and made it folks aware of those areas.
I had one of the city officials in Ridgeway who likes to ride the trail warned me of the fact that there were some real dangerous spots there in that section. And then
Yeah.
another person said, be very careful on an electric bike because you might get thrown in the ditch in some areas. So, I mean, those are public comments that I get that you should hear also.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a long-term maintenance plan for that Prairie Farmer Trail that who's
Well-
gonna resurface it when it needs it? And
Yeah, and actually I submitted a grant a few years ago for just that. And there are so many trails in Iowa that we ranked in like the bottom quarter of, and so it's one of those where we'll just keep putting in grants, hoping to get funded, but there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of older trails than the Prairie Farmer.
so if we put in a beauty parlor at one of our campgrounds, you probably camping?
No, you have to have beauty parlor and campground store and, recreation area and laundry room. And some of them have some very sophisticated,
That's
one of them,
all.
of course, has a bar and restaurant, but, they're
whole
the
average.
most expensive. That's $127 for a 2-night stay.
Yeah, that's
With
not
electricity.
low income family camping.
I know, when we camp, we like the more laid back rustic thing because
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
less.
It's
less
it's
things going
You
on.
want camp.
entirely different group and a whole different part of the camping world. But the ones that are camping that have RVs are not not necessarily your low income campers. The ones that are tent spaces. Do we have tent spaces that I think we do along the river at Kendallville.
Both Lake Meyer and Kendallville both have tent sites. Yeah, we call it non-electric. Those are the ones that are $15 a night.
Yeah, we have, there is even some of the campgrounds that will have groups of 30 and 40 tenters come in at a time for a weekend.
Yeah, well, Lake Meyer this weekend had 17 tents with scouts this weekend at Lake Meyer. So it's,
Do we do that as a pro bono situation for the scouting groups?
yes, but they also did a park cleanup and walked around the lake and cleaned. The only thing we asked was they make sure the leaders double check the bathrooms and that's not an extra burden on the hosts. So
It's a great opportunity.
we want to encourage youth, we want to encourage the youth to camp.
I know,
They're the next generation.
I know you mentioned the American Rescue Plan with the not having enough of that money to go around and do the shower house at the Neste, but we did fund some of the
Yes.
other projects, so maybe a reminder of what.
Yeah, we did the septic at Lake Meyer, we did the septic at Neste and the septic at Walden Pond. So yes,
And some wireless internet.
wireless internet. And then also there were funds for the stormwater protection
Okay.
on the dry run trail project.
That was 200.
So will that be
78,000.
adequate on Neste to be able for the dump station and be able to service the campground?
I didn't,
Will that be adequate on Neste to be able to handle the dump station and the Neste campground besides for that sewer system?
there is no, we'll have to
septic
put in a new sewer.
A new one for that, okay,
Yes.
not the existing one you just
No,
talked
no,
about.
that's just for a
Okay.
home. Yeah, no, and I don't think from what the landscape architect had determined, we would probably need a new well also to be able
So that
to,
has to be the same as the public well
yes.
with chlorination and.
Well, not necessarily chlorination. None of our sites have a chlorination system. So we do frequent water tests, and as long as our tests come back, no issues, we avoid having to have a chlorination system.
Good, because that's very expensive.
Yeah, but like,
And daily testing if you do that.
well, Lake Meyer, because it's a year-round system, we test quarterly. Kendallville, because it's a seasonal, that one gets tested monthly.
Going back to the scouts and doing their service projects there. You benefit from the scouts picking up around the recycling bins down here by the city hall. Been doing that for a long time.
Well, that was a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea it was, but I see them out there like once a month, but they're probably picking up trash.
Boy Scouts is a good organization.
Scouts, yeah.
Well, in Kendallville, we have them do river cleanup. As you float down, do a cleanup.
That's great.
Okay, nothing further there.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. As a biker and a camper, I look forward to this project completion someday.
I had the money to make sure it was complete.
Nothing further, so
Motion to adjourn?
first, second.
Second, Alfred.
First and second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
Here's the one lecture.
Single family dwelling.
Oh, this is one that you scheduled the public hearing. Last week you scheduled it for. Let me look here for those minutes. Do you have that? Yeah, the second, maybe. Yeah, I think it's the second. Look at your minutes. We scheduled that hearing. Recognize the name.
So this must be Tony's.
Tony stuff.
It'll get in the mail. Mr. Rick.
No.
Ask on that.
So.
We did. Yep. Thank you.
So short meeting.
There are still three in the room.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now there are two in the room.
A whole bunch of minutes. I just keep them there for saddles. You can post it, and so we had to put a bunch in, I think.
How many members?
You can close it. Yes, thank you, Fatima.
I thought she